What's going on, guys? EPICJONTUAZON here. We're going to be doing a brake pad and rotor change on the 2012 TSX today. So I'm going to go through step by step on how to do that. First off, let's go through what I got as far as replacement parts. So I'm going with the Acura front brake pads, part number ACT787. Also for the rotors, I went with the centric rotors. Let me see if there's a part number on here. There isn't a part number on here, but I will leave all the part numbers of everything I'm going to be using today in the description below. So if you need that, just search down below. Here I got an impact screwdriver, which I will show you what I'm going to be using this for. Mainly it's going to be used to take off the rotor with 2 screws, but I'll get to that in a second. If you haven't seen my front brake pad change, I've done the brakes before but kept the rotor on. You'll again need the tools to remove the brake pads. If you need to just see how to change the brake pads, I'll put a link here for you guys to check that out. But I'm going to just fast forward to actually removing the rotor. So then once we remove the rotor, I will explain to you what I did real quickly, but if you want a more in-depth look, check out this link so you can see how to do the brake pads. Alright, so with your wheel off and your car securely jacked, you're going to take this tool, which is an impact screwdriver, and you're going to make sure the correct head is on, and essentially you're going to put it onto the screws here. You have 1, 2, and you're going to use the force of your hammer to kind of shake up the screw and break it loose. Alright, so this tool did not work. So I'm ending up drilling out the heads of the screw to get the bolt out. Now really you don't need these screws. These are just made for assembly purposes, so it keeps the rotor from falling off when it's being assembled. So I am going to drill these 2 screws out, and I'm not going to replace them. And really you only need to drill a little bit into it, and it should loosen the head. Like so. Because really what's going on is, what's keeping tension on the bolt is mostly the head against the rotor. So once you drill pressure off the head, you can get the screw out. And now once you have those 2 screws out, basically you're going to disassemble your brake pads and your caliper and do exactly what I did when I was removing the brake pads. So I'm going to remove the old brake pads, and then I'm going to take you back and help you remove this bracket towards the hub. Alright, so now that you have your caliper loosened, you're going to remove these 2 bolts here, 1 and 2, and that basically holds your bracket here to the hub. So those 2 bolts will remove the bracket, and then you'll be able to pull the rotor out. And those 2 bolts are 17mm. And so again, it's probably a good idea for you to secure the caliper because you don't want any tension on the brake line. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zip tie it over here, just so we don't have any problems. Alright, after some persuasion, they're coming out, thank God. I knew this day couldn't be like just drilling out every bolt. Alright, so that should remove your, basically your, whatever this piece is that attaches the caliper to the hub. And these bolts, I've gotten a lot of questions about thread locking. These are the bolts that you're going to want to thread lock, the ones that go to the hub, not these. I actually anti-seize the caliper bolts to this actual bracket, just because you don't want to have any issues getting these out, but these you definitely don't want coming out. And now with nothing holding the rotor back, this should just come off. Okay, so it seems like the rotor's going to need some persuasion as well. I'm going to hit it with some rust release WD-40 penetrating spray. Alright, and off comes your rotor. So now that you have all of that off, you can take your brake cleaner and just clean away. Okay, so now you have everything clean. You're going to take your new brake rotor, you're going to wipe it down with some brake cleaner, and then you're going to replace it back onto the hub. So this is the time where you're going to add some thread locker. I'm going to use 243, and you're going to put this bracket back onto the hub, connecting the caliper to the hub. But when doing these bolts, you're going to make sure you're going to want to tighten them down. I'm not sure the correct torque specs, but I'm going to just torque them down as hard as I think would be reasonable, because you don't want these coming out, because that's what's holding your caliper to your hub, and if you lose your caliper, you will have no brakes. Now the next step is to reset your caliper. So what you're going to do is, just like when you were changing your brake pads, you're going to take your old brake pad and use your brake pad tool and push back the piston so that it can accommodate your new pads. Alright, so there you have it. Brake rotors and brake pads installed. Again, if you want to see a more in-depth look of how I changed the brake pads, I'll leave a link right here for you guys to check that out. You definitely want to grease up those pistons that are clamping in and out, as well as anti-seize the bolt that goes on top of it, because you don't want that to get stuck. But you do want to thread lock the ones that attach this bracket to the hub. I just want to make that clear, because there's been a lot of questions on those, and it's a good question to have. If you guys have any more questions, definitely leave them in the comment section below. Again, I will leave all the part numbers to the rotor, the pads, the grease, whatever I used in this video down below, so you guys can check that out if you need them. I will be coming at you with the rear pad changes soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Hit that subscribe button below if you enjoyed this video. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!